Hey guys, now if you're a regular viewer to my channel, you'll know that obviously I'm a massive fan of the Commodore Amiga, but also I am quite an operating system enthusiast as well. I love, trying out and tinkering with different OSs and trying out new platforms, and also stuff that's kind of got its heritage in the Amiga I find really interesting. I've done videos on Amiga OS 4 and MorphOS and AROS. However, this new platform that we're going to be looking at now has got its roots firmly in the Amiga, but also it takes a lot of those kind of Amiga design principles and the best bits of the Amiga and takes them into the 21st century. Now, last year in the summer, I did actually do a couple of videos, but there were some really big Amiga 30th birthday parties all around the world. There was one in Germany, one in Holland, one here in the UK at Peterborough, one in California. And there was, of course, all the original Amiga designers were there and guys from Commodore. But also, mixed in with those guys, there was a new team, a group called the FriendOS or the FriendUP guys. And they did a couple of presentations and actually got quite a lot of interest at these shows. And I was chatting to a couple of the guys from Friend when they were at the show in Holland. And I will admit, when I first heard about this new platform that they've been working on, the potential for this is really big, but it did take me a little bit of time to kind of get my head around exactly just what you can do with it and the potential for it. But I will say, when it actually triggered, I was like, my God, this thing could be absolutely massive. And I thought we need to cover it on the channel. We need to do a little bit about this new platform. As I mentioned before about the Amiga, you'll see in a moment, I'm going to do a really interesting 20-minute chat with Hogne, who is really the lead dev on the FriendUp platform. And Hogne, as you'll hear in a moment, he is an old school Amiga hacker. He had an Amiga 4000, nice setup back in the 90s, and then after that he went to work on the AROS open source Amiga replacement project. And now he's come up with this amazing new platform that, as I mentioned, takes a lot of the design cues from the Amiga, and it's kind of got that sprinkling of the Amiga magic in there as well. But you thought back in the day you had your Amiga set up on the desk, your files and the OS was on your Amiga 4000, for example. You turn it off, and then until you come back to it, you haven't got access to anything. It's all contained on that hard disk inside your machine, which is very much a 20th century way of computing. What this new platform does is basically takes all of your operating system environment, your files, and makes it available on pretty much anything, any platform you could think of, anywhere. So that in itself is pretty amazing. But the fact that this has kind of come from the Amiga as well really just makes it even more exciting for me. And what's even better, for technology enthusiasts like you and I, it's a completely free platform for private use, and it's open source as well. So, you can go and tinker with it, install it and whatever you like. And in a moment, we're going to have a chat to Hogne, as I mentioned, from the team. They'll find out a lot more about the FriendUp platform. But also, I will say, you can actually try it out for yourself as well, because this coming Friday, January the 22nd, they're going to be releasing their first public beta of the FriendUp platform. So you can download the source code, experiment with it, log in, try out the desktop environment, have a little play, do whatever you want with it, basically. So that comes out this coming Friday, 22nd of January. All the download links will be provided in the video description. Obviously, any questions you want to ask, feel free to leave them. And hopefully Hogne is going to come back and give us a few regular updates, because I had a nice chat to him, and he really wants to get the word out there as well. So he's agreed to kind of give us the inside scoop, if you like, and give you a few updates over the next few months of the milestones and exactly where the FriendUp platform is going. So that's it from me for now. Enjoy this 20-minute chat with Hogne and see what you think of the FriendUp platform. Hogne, welcome to the channel.
Thank you.
How are you?
Oh, I'm great.
Now, the reason I want to get you on is because we met in Amsterdam when you were over there at the Amiga's 30th anniversary. Now, you're behind a project that's called FriendUp, which I think is really exciting, actually. Now, first of all, give us a little background on your history before we get into FriendUp.
Well, I was one of the Commodore generation. I grew up with the Commodore 64s and the Amigas and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And obviously, seeing all the old computers that we were put in front of at work, it was much more fun to get home to my home computer, where much of the learning took place. And, well, so just like a lot of people in the 80s generation, they got, more and more advanced with their home computers as the home computers got more advanced themselves. and we kind of learned how to do stuff as the technology became available. And so one line of my history is going to school and university, learning about world history and philosophy and those type of things. And then, of course, you had the private life with computers and nerding and Amiga stuff. So and actually, after I finished my first year of university, I was kind of ejected to Holland, where I started working for a programming company. And so that's how my kind of tech career started in 2001.
So you had a love affair with the Amiga before that, though, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, my main computer until 2001 was an Amiga 4000.
Okay.
And
as you probably see here.
Yeah, I had something like that. It was painted black.
Oh, okay, hardcore. Stealth Amiga.
Yeah, it was kind of a nerdy thing. I kind of repaired it with duct tape and all kinds of patches. I expanded it quite heavily with a Cyberstorm and Cybervision card and all that stuff. And I did everything from schoolwork to programming on that box. Of course, after my life with Amigas, I went quickly into Linux after seeing, Windows being the other alternative. For me, the choice was easy, but of course, Linux never got easy to use.
It was developed really as like a server OS, really, wasn't it, Linux? So
yeah, it was an experiment that became very useful, and I think a lot of us continued learning a lot into our adult life on the Linux platform. And that type of knowledge, of course, led us to server development, and thankfully that background came in handy when developing the Friend unifying platform.
One thing I've seen as well from ex kind of Commodore and Amiga users, they've all kind of got quite a creative streak in them as well. So it's not a surprise to see that many of them are involved in really exciting new projects and industries today.
No, I think this is something that all Amiga experienced users can agree on, and that is that almost every Amiga user used the Amiga for creative work. It was music, it was graphics, it was programming, it was a wealth of different creative endeavors. And a lot of people also got into business through computers, because the Amiga magazines were so rich with ideas, and this was also something that was very special about the Amiga angle is that the magazines were so great, and they were basically telling people that you can really do so many amazing things with these computers that you can actually earn a living. And you had a lot of tutorials on how to make graphics and how to put them together with coding and music, and how to advance your work to publishing houses and so on. So I think a lot of people were not only inspired to make creative things with the Amigas, but they were inspired to actually make a living out of it. And I think a lot of people ended up making a living because of that.
They would often give you the tools to do it on the magazines, wouldn't they, on the cover discs and...
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they were useful. So let's talk about this project you're involved in now then, the Friend Unified Platform. Before we get into exactly what it is, how did you start with this?
Well, actually, it started back in about 2001 when I moved to Holland. I'd been following this AROS project, the Amiga Research Operating System project.
The open source one, yeah?
Yeah, and I got involved with that after following it for a few years. And I started messing about with the source code and hanging out on the chat rooms. And I met a lot of developers there. And I made some software for ROS. And after a time, a decade had gone by almost, and we'd seen that the progress was really slow. And of course, that was because the progress depended on developers having, interests, kind of hobby interests. They weren't working towards a deadline to sell a product or to enable a company to run a business or something like that. So understandably, they would be using time on fun aspects of the source code. So, but we were a couple of guys who were kind of thinking that, well, AROS could have been a platform that could continue the Amiga operating system, give you the same experience and the same possibilities that you wouldn't get in Linux or Windows. And so we went together and we were discussing making a different version of AROS using the Linux kernel. Mm-hmm. And we got some of the heavy lifters in the AROS project, and eventually we went out and started on the Anubis project. And the Anubis project really never came further than some C code and a website with a wiki on it. And we had different ambitions and we had different perspectives on how this system ought to be put together. Should it be more like Mac OS X, more like Windows? Should it have an emphasis on this type of language or that type of language? And basically, it fell flat on its face because we couldn't agree on the technology.
Right.
Now, later on, I started a company in 2010, and it was type of advertising combined with programming agency. And we got a client in 2013 where we were going to make some network software to let them view files on a shared drive. And so this led me to use some of the components that I had built, in the evenings. And it started looking really much like a desktop environment. Of course, without any security, or it didn't have, it was basically a mock-up of a desktop environment.
All the basics were there, though, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I started thinking about Anubis again. And I started thinking about how can I combine this assignment from this client with some of the ideas, and is it possible? And so I sat down with some of my colleagues and we made a mock-up of a desktop environment, and it suddenly dawned on us that we could really go far with this. And once we got to the client, we kind of explained to him, well, we kind of made more than you asked for. But he became one of our first investors.
Okay.
And that's how the Friend Unifying Platform started. We kind of just bought out that code into a new company, and then Friend Software Labs was born.
Well, Friend is obviously, it's a very big, and you could almost say complex project in many ways, because there is a lot to it. But explain really simply, in like a couple of sentences, what exactly is it?
Well, FriendOS is something called a web operating system. That means that it uses the internet for resources and presents the user interface through a web browser. Of course, this is a simplified way to explain it, but basically, for most users, especially in the beginning, FriendOS or Friend Unifying Platform will be a website where they log in and can work. And they can have that address bookmarked on their mobile phone, their tablet, even in VR. We have it running on Samsung VR, Samsung Internet for Gear VR. And it works perfectly on all these platforms because they have a web browser. Of course, it's much more than that. The web has, kind of proliferated onto every device and has so many use cases right now. I just saw an article a couple of weeks ago from California that talked about how Apple is kind of losing the train on the web because they're letting their web browser fall behind, and their devices aren't so tuned to running web applications as they are running, iPhone apps. And a lot of people are looking into making web apps instead of making traditional applications, because they're so much more costly to develop than the web applications. Probably, I usually say a web application costs a tenth of the price of making a native application for iOS, Android, or especially Windows, or when you get into desktop operating systems, it's even more complex. So in that regard, Friend is a new type of operating system that allows you to develop your applications as web applications, but to deploy them in the same way you would deploy a native application. And this goes even further when you think about running FriendUP as a desktop environment for your PC, which is possible to do on Linux and BSD, and later on other systems as well.
What we're using here then, because I'm doing a screen capture of this here, we're seeing some kind of desktop interface. Is this kind of an early version of what you have in mind?
This is the skin that's in the beta program. Mm-hmm. We have about 4 or 5 different themes right now, ranging from Windows and Apple lookalikes to developer-friendly, high contrast, negative themes, with dark colors and bright text. You can move around. Actually, this is something that's a bonus once you're making, the desktop environment based on HTML5, is that you actually get a hardware accelerated graphics toolkit that has very rich media capabilities that can be themed as easily as you would change the design on a website.
Right, okay.
So with using simple style sheet based themes, you can make Friend look like anything you want.
So I'm seeing a bit of an Amiga kind of skin here on the Windows on the one I'm logged into. I can recognize the gadgets.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot more to FriendUP in Amiga terms than the window gadgets. Mm-hmm. We're reproducing a lot of the Amiga DOS, and we're reproducing a lot about we're kind of reintroducing a lot of the paradigms from Workbench. And, we're actually a lot of the technology we're developing has its roots in the Amiga OS. For example, we're having our own type of implementation of RX, right, which we call dormant. And it actually lets each application not communicate through message passing through RX ports, but it communicates by exposing the application as a file system, as a disk, and then exposing its functions as virtual executables. And that way each application can run other applications and indeed its own functionality through executing its virtual executables.
So any program could use it?
Yeah, basically one of the most interesting aspects of FriendUP is that you can share the functionality of your application across the network to people who aren't even using FriendUP. They might, as long as they can mount your network drive, they can execute your functions. So you can share functions, specific functions, or you can use assign to make several applications shared in one network drive. So by making software abstractable as disks and making them shareable over the network, you can do a lot of interesting things that haven't been done before in a very high level way that's easy to understand.
Well, kind of continuing from that, I mean, how do you see it used then? Give me some kind of example uses that you'd see people using FriendOS.
Well, in the beginning, it's obvious that most businesses who will use FriendUp will be in the cloud space, because we're basically giving a type of functionality that you would get from Citrix, only that you can customize it much more. And basically we will be able to match the price of Citrix. People will earn a lot more money by using FriendUp than today. Most of the invoices that goes out from cloud companies that deliver a type of Citrix experience, most of the majority of the money goes back to Citrix, because the license is quite expensive. And at the same time, the infrastructure needed to run Friend is quite low footprint. Our server technology is written in C, and it's quite compact, uses almost no server resources, almost no memory storage space. Most of the stuff that's happening is happening client side in your browser, and so actually the user is basically doing all the calculations and processing without knowing it, and the server is spared. So in the cloud space, we're going to be able to do a lot of interesting things. We also have an application that will allow you to bridge back. If you don't want to run web applications, you'll be able to run Mac and Linux and Windows applications directly in FriendUp. So basically you're going to be able to use your old applications while you wait for real Friend equivalents to come along.
And essentially for the end user, it means that they can access their stuff anywhere, on any device.
Anywhere. Yes, anywhere. There was we had a bug in Friend in one of the releases prior, because we've been running now a kind of private beta program, invite only, for a while. And there was a bug that came just after a launch, and I was at a party and I didn't have my computer with me.
Right.
So there was a guy there who had a laptop with Windows 8 on it. So I just pointed it to our development server. A Friend popped up in their web browser. I went in with a programming tool and fixed the bug and reloaded the server remotely. This is the sweetness of having that type of mobility, is that you don't need to bring your tools as long as you know there's a computer connected to the internet, be it a telephone, or be it a tablet or PC, or even a smart TV. As long as you have some type of input tool, you can use any device to do everything.
And that means network administrators and developers can go to a party and not worry.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Of course, there are security issues here, but a Friend system you can lock down in many different ways.
Now, you've obviously been appearing at quite a few Amiga shows as well. That's where I first became aware of FriendOS, at the Amiga's 30th in Amsterdam. What's the reaction been like from the Amiga community?
It's been really good. I mean, we've had so much support. After our shows, we got so many new friends, and from all over the world, basically every continent, and it's been really great. You of course have a lot of skepticism, but the thing is that we didn't come empty-handed. We came with a system we could show, and even though it was quite early in the beta stage when we were demoing it back then, and we also were a bit fresh at explaining to people what it was. I think a lot of people they got it pretty fast, and we got even business associates from those shows. So for us, it was a really great opportunity, and the opportunity bore fruits as well. So right now, we've got a lot of great contacts in the US. We built a small team in California, that's working with us there to book meetings and talk to business people and so on. So the response has been great, and a lot of people, they understand that you have to move a bit out of the established technology base if you're gonna bring the ideas of the Amiga further. They have to be allowed to evolve in with the users and developers that used the system in the past. It can't be the same thing going forward. So in this way, a lot of people see the Friend unifying platform as an addition to the family of systems that are already out there, and that's how we see it as well. It's not a new type of Amiga OS, but it's an addition to the family of systems. I mean, in Linux, you have really obscure DOS functions like CP for copy, LS for list.
Unix commands, aren't they, that have just been dragged into the 21st century?
And we're obviously using more Amiga-style DOS commands like copy and dir and also list and those type of things. And it's easy to translate from an English sentence into a sentence that the command line interface can understand. Mm-hmm. So we built DOS in as kind of the base of our system. And by doing that, our RX implementation, which we call Dormant, is also based on our DOS layer. So you can actually use all the functionality in Friend using DOS commands, using the shell. And when you activate our voice control, the voice recognition ties directly into our DOS matrix. So it actually redirects the English language or what language we implement in the future and translates it to DOS commands. And then you can control the windows on your screen. You can open up applications. You can input text. And you can basically administrate all your resources through voice only.
So obviously this sounds really exciting. I'm sure many people are watching this video thinking, right, when can we try this? How do people actually try FriendOS for themselves?
Actually, within a few weeks, people will be able to register on our website and get a free beta account. The next Friday, the 22nd of January, we're launching our first public beta, which you will be able to download also yourself, download the source code. And we're releasing this open source for the Raspberry Pi primarily. What we're doing is we're going to get people to learn how to use the system and learn how to program the system and learn how to set up the system. And we need to do this in an open source way to get the momentum we need to make it a reality. So in a few weeks, people are going to be able to register their account and just log straight in. And they're also going to be able to download the entire system and set it up on their local computers.
Is this for free as well, yeah?
Oh yeah, for free. Of course, we will only, our commercial edge is towards commercial developers. Mm-hmm. And businesses who want to deploy Friend in an enterprise scenario. So we don't plan to take anybody's money, from the private sector, or from organizations or students, or we want this to be a technology that spreads everywhere. So we're giving it away unless you're gonna, unless you have software secrets that you wanna tie down in closed source software.
Well, Hogne, this sounds really, really interesting, and I'd recommend anyone downloads the beta when it comes out. What's the website that they go to? What's the address? FriendOS.com. By downloading Friend, you get the easiest chat server, video chat server that is encrypted. Using it now, yeah?
Yeah. So if you set it up on your own computer, you can offer all your friends a private encrypted chat server where they can just log in with their phone or their laptop. And so there are many reasons why you would want to download it just to play with it, because you can do a lot of things that you couldn't do with other setups.
Well, Hogne, I find it a really exciting project, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I love the fact that it's Amiga inspired as well. You know, being similar to you, a guy that grew up with the Amiga and had a big passion for it back in the day. It's great to see some of that Amiga enthusiasm and soul coming through in FriendUP.
Oh yeah, it's definitely Amiga inspired. It's also inspired by other systems, but the uniqueness of it comes from the Amiga OS, obviously, because that's something that most people haven't seen in a decade or more, or ever seen. And so it's going to be, to many people who've never ever used an Amiga before, they're going to, wonder how we came up with all these good ideas. Obviously some of us know where they come from.
The secret club, yeah, the Amiga guys. Well, Hogne, it's been great talking to you. Will you come back and give us an update on FriendUP in the next couple of weeks?
Of course, and I'm going to fix this this screen that goes into sleep mode all the time.
Yeah, that's a big job. Great, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.